Well, part two of looking back at Tynwald on Tuesday this week, which the whole morning session was taken up with this, between hearing from the Health Minister, making his apology, and then taking questions. And then we obviously had the Chief doing his bit, followed by input from various members, including the bit of a bombshell from Tim Glover saying he didn't want anything to do with this the Canon administration, I think was how he put it. But where do we want to go next? Do you want to go back to Alf's bit, what he said?
Yes, I think we need to address the motion and the intention behind it, which I think is sound. You know, I mean, I genuinely think it's sound. It's going to be very interesting, though. I don't know whether we're allowed to jump at the moment to how the Select Committee was elected. Perhaps we should come back to that later. But
try and keep it in chronological.
Yeah, but one of the issues I originally saw, I saw the original list of issues which it was proposed, suggested, recommended that the Select Committee, in conjunction with a KC or a retired judge or something, will look at, and it included the issue of allowing documents related to legal professional privilege being dealt with. Now, that's going to be a fascinating issue, and if they don't come to a way of dealing with legal professional privilege in this particular instance, there's going to be a problem, because the Attorney Generals are very much in the frame of it should be very much in the frame of the Select Committee's work, and if it's not, then the Select Committee is going to fail in its work, which I hope that doesn't happen. But it's not going to be possible to deal with it properly unless it's understood what the Attorney General said or did not say, wrote or did not write to the DHSC, and in reverse. But you could argue that those communications are covered by legal professional privilege. Mm-hmm. If that's not dealt with, well, frankly, it's probably not worth going ahead with the Select Committee at all. You can't dance around this. The AGs are in the frame, and it's got to be dealt with. The other things I think are pretty well more straightforward. If you want to now move on to the...
Well, I'm talking about Alf now, right? Or
okay.
What he said, because, again, the tone, what do you think to the way he delivered what he said, way he said it, and his apology? He's now clarified that he has written an apology, I think was how he put it, to Dr Ranson. But Mr Glover, if he knows probably directly what happened, it went through the lawyers. So he hasn't actually had a one-to-one with her from all accounts. Do you think that's a mistake, that he should,
yes,
at this stage, have just been the better person and gone and saw it? She may not want to see him, but, he should have offered rather than just a letter.
In the circumstances, I think it's wholly appropriate. But in round, I think he should have done, so that's clear. In the round, I think he dealt with the moving the motion, his statement, if you like. It was a statement with questions, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. He dealt with that well. It was only when he was off the written, off-piste, as it were, dealing with Tim Glover and John Wannenberg and Claire Christian, that it became antagonistic and aggressive, to a degree aggressive. But that mirrors exactly what happened the previous week, when I was very comfortable with what he'd said in Keys. And then he did an interview the following morning with Manx Radio, and that, as I've said to you before, that was awful. So it becomes worrying that when he gives a considered presentation, one is very comfortable with it. And then moving off piste, it becomes troublesome. And you begin to wonder, well, hang on, what does Council of Ministers really think about all of this? Is there a presentation of what they think they should say, and outside of that and behind it, what they really think?
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, let's remember that was a written piece of information he was delivering. I was keeping my eyes on the very senior civil servants. There were two of them downstairs.
Right, I couldn't see that.
At one stage, he looked at them directly with him saying, everyone's got to take responsibility or something like that. And I thought, he was really, trying to talk to everyone, because, let's face it, I can't believe Al will write everything that's going to be written there. He's got to still rely on his civil servants and, as I said, senior civil servants who may or may not have something else to do with this yet.
I'm the first to say he's got an incredibly difficult job here, and I have enormous sympathy for him. But Tynwald's got to pick this up in its entirety, and I don't think the response was quite what I'd expected. I didn't really know what to expect, other than I thought, to go back to our first section on this one, that as it was the lid coming off the whole subject, there would be a tumult of commentary and opinion. Some of it would be strong, some of it less so. What we got was the strong submissions, the heartfelt submissions from John and Tim and Claire, and one or two others.
We'll come to that in a second.
Making decent contributions. Yeah. But the other side was almost a sort of a resentment that anybody wanted to express these views in the first place, and that we don't want to have this, we want to button it down and deal with it, as it were, behind the scenes. That's not going to happen.
Well, there was no comfortable feeling in there. It certainly was something that, and they had a guest over for a couple of weeks, and they announced at the beginning, probably the last thing you want to do is show your government off in that light to anybody. But let's, we've got
that would be no excuse for that.
No. I'm saying it doesn't play well, does it? And I'm saying that's just one person, it's playing out badly. We've got he's made his announcements, and he said what he had to say. Did he do enough to save himself in what he said, though?
Oh, I think it's early doors.
Okay. So then we had Tim Glover.
We're right at the beginning of a process now.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah. That's why I'm not going to push on that. Tim Glover stands up, and I love what he said. I thought it was so passionate. He had me in tears.
Do you know what?
Because passion is everything to me. When someone speaks from the heart, and you could hear him trembling in his voice, and the way he just said at the beginning, he just said, "What on earth is going on?" Or something. It's like, what? I just can't believe what I've sat through, wasn't it? It was because he got it, doesn't he? He gets it.
I was hugely encouraged by the trio, call him the trio, because
who had met Ranson.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Well, maybe all the members should meet.
Maybe.
Every individually, and get the truth and understand
that's
it.
A good thought, actually. Never thought. But
if Rosalind Ranson could.
No, but anyway, she met those three, and they were the first three to.
But it took me back to Tynwald of old, if you like, where passions flowed in the chamber, and that out of those emotions and those strong held views, often contradictory, emerged a way forward. This house, these three yesterday, expressing themselves the way they did, was the first time since the last election that we've had people stand up and wear their heart on their sleeve, and I was encouraged by it, and then progressively disappointed by what happened later.
Indeed, I thought
some of it was miserable.
Hearing Glover was going to set off a sort of,
it should have done,
a real swing. We had the other two come in, which was Claire Christian and John Warrenberg. Of course, both. In fact, Mr. Warrenberg, I thought did a very moving.
John's speech was a very fine, put together piece of work.
This is a man who hates public speaking as well.
Wow.
So that's his job now. He's got to do it. But I thought, no, that was good. And we knew Claire was going to be solid, and she's the Rottweiler. She's going to keep on this one, which is great. Then we had sort of just mediocre sort of ish things. It wasn't really. There was no more backing, was there, in that sense?
It was almost, on the part of some members, some quite senior members, it was almost an expression of resentment that people had worn their heart on their sleeve, and that went straight past me. I thought that's not the way to behave. And quite a few ministers had absolutely nothing to say at all.
Julie Edge did, because she had a decision on this, right? On the whistleblowers. So she was allowed to, but cometh the vote when who's going to be on that committee, and surprise, surprise, when it got down to the last one to be picked, Claire Christian didn't make the grade. That is disappointing again. That feels like the club has sort of got together to make sure that she didn't get on that committee.
That was the wrong thing for Tynwald to do.
They should have put her on first.
They should have had one of the three.
But that's it's too obvious, because you go, we've got to sort this out. We've got to be seen to be sorting this out. What do? You put the person that's probably going to be the most trouble, if she's not on the thing anyway, get her on, get her inside that tent for the thing, so she has a first-hand view of all the evidence. Well, because they had their chance. They had their chance to go, we are bigger than this, but they didn't, in my view, do that. And when I explained, they went for the committee of 3 people.
Correct.
2 got picked, and then one. The first one got one, then there was the second one. Then it got down to two left. It was Claire Christian and I can't remember who the other person. Oh, Stu Peters, because he went on.
Stu Peters, yeah.
So they had a vote basically on these 2 people, and so I thought, well, it'd be obvious, but no. And then I said to myself, she's not going to get it. They won't let her do it.
Well, doesn't that express this sense of, we really...
Exactly.
And it sort of reinforces the impression I was given, we really don't want to be dealing with... My God, they have got to deal with this, and they have got to understand the details of it.
If Comyn had a meeting beforehand, they should have said, look, let's put one of those trouble ones on that committee.
Hang on, when you say trouble...
To them it's trouble, right?
But it shouldn't be. It's an expression, a strong
I'm
expression.
agreeing with you,
okay.
But you know what I'm saying here is that you should be whiter than white and put the best person on. Was Claire Christian better than Stuart Peters? I mean, I'm not decrying Stuart Peters here, but I don't know if Stuart Peters really wants to do it. I mean, he didn't look overexcited about the whole idea, but, so be it. I think whereas Claire would have grasped the whole thing with delight. I mean, her name was put forward, she was seconded, and all that sort of thing. So there was support there. In fact, I think it was within 2 votes to get on.
Oh, I didn't see the votes. I hadn't got my glasses on, so I couldn't see that far.
Anyway, it is what it is. We better deal with some other stuff here.
David Ashford.
Well, yeah, because I interviewed him afterwards, and also
I followed that.
Phil Gordon got him, and so I did about 15 minutes with him. But I don't know. I've done him so many times, and I don't know if I got anywhere at all. Certainly, he's okay because he wasn't mentioned in the report, and we hear this being said, and yeah, I don't know what to say. Well, you've watched both interviews, listened to the radio one, haven't you? So. Did you glean anything from the ex-health minister?
I'll try and keep this as courteous as I can. He simply will not grasp the essence of this, the fact that... I mean, he wouldn't... What I found very disappointing, I don't know if it was your interview or Phil's, forgive me, it might have been both. He won't even apologise to Rosalind Ranson when he was right at the centre of all of this. It was David Ashford who refused to engage with Rosalind Ranson because everything had to be filtered through Catherine Maxson. That wasn't imposed upon David Ashford. It was David Ashford's will, and yet for him to say to you and to Phil that he was listening to Rosalind Ranson. Well, how the hell could he have possibly known whether he was listening to what Rosalind Ranson said if he'd insisted that it would be filtered through Catherine Maxson? David Ashford's in a very, very bad place, and he said, twice you said to him, have you reached out to Rosalind Ranson? And rather than say yes or no, he said, well, what do you mean by reaching out? Now, that's playing with words.
Of course it is, and I think I picked it up because he always answered the question that when you don't get an answer straight away, you know that it's being selectively.
And his final defence is always, well, I resigned, I did the right thing. What did he resign for? For handling things incorrectly, or, as it were, in his mind, carrying the responsibility even though it wasn't me. David has not come to terms with his involvement in this, right at the core of it. If he had listened to his chief medical director of medicine, it's very unlikely, directly and honestly, it's very unlikely that we would have ended up where we ended up. So David's never truly accepted responsibility. He stepped out and then, as it were, washes his hands of it and says, but I've done the right thing. Why? So he can come back in again. And if he comes back in, he'll bring the same weaknesses and failings that caused the problem in the first place. And everybody needs to take that into account. Or David, once and for all, stands up and accepts responsibility for what he didn't do that he should have done and apologises to Rosalind Ranson. I would forgive him at that stage. He just simply is incapable of doing it.
Well, and he says though he's not actually mentioned in the report, except for there was that sort of sly line of saying that he did very.
That's a cop out, Paul. Come on.
Yeah, but that's factually he's not actually in the frame by name. I mean, there was this. I said there was this one paragraph particularly that was slurring a bit on his presentation. I think to them. I don't know, but you'd have to read the whole report for that one.
I've said this many times. That I'm completely at a loss how the Minister of DHSC could possibly not have an open door to his Chief Medical Officer at such a time. And that's his failing. If he accepts that and apologises, I'm repeating myself, I could forgive him.
Something I touched on the very beginning of the interview, because I was thrown, because we're waiting outside at the lunch interval, And Mr. Hooper comes past and said, will you be talking at all? And he said, I can't talk, it's sub judice. And I went, what? And he said, don't you know your facts? Don't you follow these things? I go, you've lost me. He said, there's another live appeal going on, a tribunal going on. So I'm completely, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the interview with Mr. Ashford, who also didn't know, and think about it, in Tynwald, the AG surely would have directed people if there was still another live issue in front of them, because sub judice is their favourite word to pull out, right? But anyway, so apparently it's something to do with the amount of money or something like that, and the Ranson people have initiated it, but we don't know what. I mean, I have no more information than that, so we're not going down that route anyway. So I think we're still okay.
There's nothing we can say about that.
He came out of that room and said, "I can't talk about it. It's sub judice. I've got more chance talking about it in the room, right?" So that this could go on. I don't know. Will he ever talk to us? Will he ever want to? I mean, he looked a bit flustered.
I think no surprise at that, but. I think everybody needs to understand how huge this is and how important it is, and that it's not at an end, nor is it going to be closed down in the way that some members wanted it just to go away when they were in their body language and lack of expression and opinion, and the way they behaved suggested, this must go away. It will not go away, and it has to be picked up and dealt with fully. We've yet to fully find how that's going to be achieved, but it's going to have to be achieved one way or the other.
I've got one more thing to go back. Let's go back to Mr. Hooper when he was doing his thing, and he came to the Expel report, and he literally went, "That's fine. They've reported. There is nothing to say." And my jaw dropped at that point, because that's like saying, what. I'm speechless about this whole thing, because it is so serious. And I know it's £68,000 that they spent on this thing, but he's accepted that on hold. And I've done 3 quite detailed forensic breakdowns of the Expel report. It was help that was given to me. And if nothing else, there's doubt. Exactly what's there. Now, he said it's fine, and he literally trotted out the whole thing. There's a bit of issues, but it was all down to people working late, long hours, that sort of thing, and the COVID. But surely. And this is how it's so serious, because it could be manslaughter charges, and that's like 18 years in jail. I mean, that's how serious this is. Surely now he should have gone, we will send it off though to the police to double check it to see, because this also brings in the fact that Magson's outside the range of the Isle of Man. That's what the AG said, right? Mm-hmm. Because they can serve her, but she's got no needs to come back, because that's civil, isn't it? And I'm not a lawyer, but if it was criminal, and by the police getting involved and they find something they want to investigate, they're entitled to issue a summons, and that summons in the UK would be acted upon, and that person would be brought back to the Isle of Man. As I understand it, I may be wrong, but that's how it's.
Well, we've yet to see how the BMA handle the matter from their end.
Yeah, but only the police can make certain people. We're talking about Magson, obviously.
Well, look,
to come back to the Isle of Man.
Back to Laurie Hooper's comments about Expel. Remember, it was the government side, the respondent side, that appointed Expel. What all the tribunal ever wanted was a full examination of the metadata. The way Expel and the terms of reference were dealt with was the wish and will of the respondents, and there are undoubtedly questions to be answered in that whole matter. But to simply leave it at the hands of Rosalind Ranson, who was defending her position to be the one responsible for getting to the absolute truth, is not an indication of the lack of guilt, or the innocence, if you like, of the so-called concocted documents.
Anyway, just something to look out for. I've had various FOIs in, and the time is running out for the reply. Which
ones are these?
There's a lot.
Oh yeah, the complicated one.
But the thing is, at that point, we go to the appeal, outside of government, and I think there's a lot of worry inside government of what may or may not come out, because if they're forced to release information that so far they decide not to, and you have to still remember, they released the Expel report on the first whiff of a FOI, and yet everything else has been slowed down or redacted or partly given to us. And it's not just my FOIs, but anyway, and all I can say is, because I don't want to say too much more, but the clock is ticking, and I think we will get more yet to come forward, which means this thing drags on even further. If the government had just released stuff in the first place.
So how do you think those people who find themselves in a position where they want to go to a tribunal, how do you think they feel when they hear all this going on?
I don't know about you, but I've heard from lots of people. I think Tim Glover said he's heard from lots of people. And what's happening is I realised that there's loads more out there. I'm a simple one-man band, and if I can just do a plug, if you would like to like and subscribe this channel, it would help me, because that's the only income stream I'm getting, and it's not a lot. So, but you know, seriously, I mean, we have to keep this thing going, because there are other people out there who are affected.
Well, it's not us who are going to keep it going.
No,
there's an awful lot of energy now.
There's just that's what I mean. There's this built-up thing. Yeah. Other people who've been wronged or haven't yet to have their day in court or be answered by the government could well be coming. And according now to the way the government's talking, is they want to deal with this. They want to be. But as was it Mr. Glover just?
So here we are. We've got, in summary, we've got a situation where the way it's currently rolling out, if I'm to believe members in Tynwald yesterday, it's undermining public service morale. It's creating a loss of credibility in Tynwald, and it's undermining any confidence the people of the Isle of Man, if there's any left, have in government. Should they not think again about how they handle this, rather than dodge and slow down and procrastinate? The more this goes on, the worse it's going to look. Let's just get the truth out.